Yeah, I think fate and circumstance are giant. Fortune is giant. There's no question about it. Some children get shot in drive-bys. Yeah. That's just horrible, horrible luck and unfortunate circumstance. There's a lot of it is fortune and fate.
How about people getting lost? Right?
Lost, how so?
Okay, so the book that I told you I wrote on the psychics phenomenon.
What do you believe about that?
Again, I'm neutral. Right?
I'm not.
You're not? Tell me. I want to hear what you believe.
I think there's a lot of people that are full of shit.
Absolutely,
I think
my
it's almost
God.
all people that are talking about being psychic are full of shit. But I do think that there is a strange connection that we have with each other that's intangible. And I think that some people have better connections than others. Just like some people are more intelligent. Like we were talking before the podcast about Elon Musk. And it's painfully aware when you talk to him what a chimp you are. That he's so fucking smart, and his brain it's built different. Just like some people have defective hearts, some people have a heart like Lance Armstrong. It's incredible, huge, an anomaly. Some people have giant hands.
He has a big heart, literally?
Yes, he has literally and they don't know whether or not that's from training or steroids and EPO or whether or not it's something he was born with. They really don't know. But he has an unusually sized heart. Unusually large. But what was my point?
Fate, circumstance, getting lost.
Oh, psychics.
Psychics.
That's what it is. I think that most of the people that can tell you the future are full of shit. Most of the people that are I think people get feelings. I think sometimes you think about someone and they call you, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's just complete fortune. Like how many times are you thinking about a person when they don't call you? That's the argument against it. But how many times are you thinking about that person and they don't call you, but they're thinking about you as well? How many? I mean, how often is that with star-crossed lovers? They find each other years later, and they tell each other they've been thinking about each other all the time, and they can't believe it.
Right.
That's and when you get that text from someone, maybe that's just someone prone to action, but maybe there is some sort of a connection, some sort of quantum entanglement between you and someone you spent time with or shared energy with. It's possible. It's possible. But the problem is you have these mediums and psychics, and those people are just assholes. And I have a friend, his name's Banachek, and he runs a Las Vegas mentalist show where he shows you how he does these tricks. But he'll tell you absolutely these are he's been on the podcast. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. But he'll tell you these are tricks. I'm showing you how I do this. I'm going to tell you this is a trick. I'm not going to give you how I do it, but I'm going to tell you while I'm doing it, this is a trick. But he's pulling all this information out of people about their past, their childhood. He's guessing people's ages. He's guessing where they grew up. I mean, and it's all a little sneaky shit. It's the way they do it. It's a skill as much as anything. And so when you see these people that are channelers or psychics that are telling you about someone in your past that's trying to contact you, they're con artists almost exclusively. I mean, maybe there's like one lady in Tibet that has a broken gene and she could tune into the next dimension and extract some information from it. But in my experience, the vast majority of those people that I've talked to that claim to have psychic ability were also at least partially full of shit. They had weird ego problems that were glaring that they didn't notice. Like I could see it, that this is a gross way to behave, and they don't see it. Their interpersonal relationships, the way they communicate with people was like an agent, like a fake Hollywood person or something. There's something bullshitty about them. Yeah. And people who lie a lot, I think if you lie a lot, it's very difficult for you to tell what a lie is.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think you lose your connection. I think when you bullshit, I think you also bullshit yourself. I mean, I don't think these psychics are 100% honest even with themselves. I don't think this is like, I'm going to fuck this lady over. She thinks she's going to talk to her husband. I'm going to tell her some nonsense, take her money. I think some of them actually believe they're getting information. My grandmother used to believe that. My grandmother was, she was a very eccentric lady and old Sicilian lady. And she would tell you about old Italian ladies all want to play the lottery. They all have numbers. And she was playing the numbers. It wasn't even the lottery. It was like the organized crime numbers racket. And she would always say, I was going to pick this number, and I just, at the last minute, I changed the number. And wouldn't you know it, the first one came in, and she was so mad. But it was always that I had a dream of this, and I had a vision of that. And it was all visions and dreams and psychics. But everything worked out horribly for her. It always did. Like if like you were really psychic, you would have better instincts. Like this is just this inclination that people have that there's something special about their perceptions and that they're psychic. And it's always these really wacky people that believe they're psychics in my experience.
Which, I mean, I think you're talking also about what some scientists would call the self-fulfilling prophecy, you know, that if you believe this, things happen, manifest themselves, and you can convince yourself that you believe this. But for me, I'm super interested in people who really believe in psychics, right? Like that's what, and the military, for example. And, you know, the most
Did you ever talk to Ed Danes? You ever talk to those guys, the remote viewing guys?
I talked to a lot of the scientists who taught the remote viewing, and I talked to a number of remote viewers for the book. But the most interesting of all was the astronaut Ed Mitchell, right? And he was so I'm interested in like the psychology behind what are you looking for in that. And I saw that I was doing some research in an archive, and I came across a photo of what turned out to be Ed Mitchell on the moon reading a piece of paper. Okay? It's this extraordinary image because you're like, wait a minute, he's on the moon and he's reading a document. What is that document? I found out the document was a map of the moon. Okay? Mitchell got lost on the moon and literally pulled a map out of like, okay, he was trying to get to a certain crater. And they had a very limited amount of time.
There it is right there.
Right? Okay, there he is.
Wow.
I mean, think about that. It's like the most advanced technology of the time.
Why doesn't the guy with the camera tell him where to go?
Different
taking
story,
a picture
right?
of him. He'd be like, hey, bro,
Right,
this way.
move left.
Let's just follow our footprints. We're the only ones walking. What are you, stupid? Turn around, look at the ground. See those things? That's where you walked. Let's go that way. Jesus Christ. I'd be so mad at him. I'd be like, bro, you pulling out a map? Who wrote that map? No one's even been here. Come on, man.
They had little maps folded up in their pockets in case they got lost. They were on the way to this crater, and in that crater they were going to find, allegedly, rocks that were going to solve the mystery of the moon's creation, the origin story, right? So they had like all this pressure. They couldn't find it. The heart rate's up. The guys at Houston are like, you got to turn back. Your heart rate's going crazy. And think about it. Mitchell tells me, I went to interview him at his house when I think it was his last interview before he died. And he said there we had gotten 240,000 miles to get lost. They missed the crater by 900 feet or something.
Really?
Yeah.
So he never got to the crater?
Never got to it. He was devastated. And on the way back from the moon, he has this, what he told me was a psychic change, right? His consciousness flipped, and he became convinced that psychic powers were real. And that is really the beginning of his foray. I mean, Mitchell became a huge proponent of psychic warfare, of the idea behind what you're talking about that we spoke of as being sort of charlatanism, and he dedicated the rest of his life to it.
Well,
and he was ridiculed.
Was ridiculed, but he had some wacky beliefs. He had some wacky beliefs about aliens as well.
And I think
he thought that we were definitely in contact with aliens, and
that comes from he was so vilified by the scientists and by the astronauts and by the kind of military men, because this was just, he told me the story of when they were in quarantine after they came back from the moon, right? He and Shepard were sitting there, eating breakfast, waiting, and Shepard, a story broke that Mitchell had done some ESP experiments on the way back from the moon. And Shepard said to him, look at this nonsense. The newspapers will do anything to make a buck. And Mitchell said, I did that. I actually did that.
Well, what experiments?
So he was doing ESP experiments on the way back from the moon. He had a psychic in Chicago, a Swedish psychic, that he was sending messages to.
Was she hot?
It was an old Swedish man, right?
Okay.
I don't think, named Olaf, right?
But I hear Swedish psychic.
Right?
Yeah, I gotta get to my psychic. Can't wait to take my clothes off.
Yeah. No, I'll introduce you to Olaf.
Okay,
right?
okay. I saw the movie Frozen.
I didn't see that one.
Olaf's the little snowman.
I didn't. Oh, you got younger kids.
Yeah.
I missed that one. Mine are older.
Anyway, sorry. So Ed Mitchell was talking to this hot chick
the hot old man in and the story broke because the Swedish psychic could not resist leaking to the press that he had done these experiments.
What experiments were they?
Well, psychics train on these little cards called Zener cards, right? So you have different symbols on them, and one person, that's how they decide whether or not they're being psychic. Like there would be a veil between us, and I would say, "What are you seeing?" Right, and you would call it out. So it's like a control system. And Mitchell had these items with him on the way to the moon and did these experiments to try to see whether you could have a psychic connection with someone back on Earth. I mean, that was.
Did it work?
Well, no. And he took notes. He showed me the notes. It was so wild to be at his house in Florida, and he pulls out this old spiral notebook with like water stains on it that actually went to the moon. I was like, wow, this is really something else. I mean, it was one of those moments in time where you're just like, I don't know, there was a feeling of sadness around all of it, with Ed Mitchell sitting there in his his chair and talking to me about what it was like to be an Apollo astronaut. On the walls, I'm with a lot of these sources with like incredible amounts of awards on the walls. But what does that mean after time passes, right?
So his experiments didn't work, but he still believed in psychic powers.
Yes. I mean, so what we were saying, he was ridiculed, and he had such a tough time with it. And so the people who propped him up and the people who gave him a lot of encouragement had sort of more radical ideas as he grew older. And
Who
I
are these
think
people?
Conspiracy theorists who really kind of used him because he was an Apollo astronaut. And so he was so much more famous than any of them would ever be. And they really took advantage of him, I think.
So you think they manipulated him with information and tried to get him more and more enthusiastic about their
I mean, it's speculation
obsessions?
on my part, but you kind of go where the love is, right?
He was an older guy, too.
Yeah.
And I'd seen some interviews with him as he was getting older and older, and he seemed to be having some difficulties like thinking about things clearly.
And people take advantage of that.
Yeah, he was really obsessed with extraterrestrial life. It was really interesting because didn't he claim that he had seen something while he was up in space?
I think people helped him make that claim. That was my understanding of it, of reporting it. I mean, I stayed away from some of the crazier speculative things about him because what I was really interested in when I was writing that book was how his authority and power allowed the program to get funding, right? Because so much of this it's like, who's funding this stuff and why? And it really does come down to authority, which is always a narrative that I find fascinating, right? How do people get the authority to say go on these programs, or we should do that? I mean, the question you asked of like, who's in charge, right?
Right.
And in all of this, what I learned more than anything is that the office of the president has a lot more power than I think any of us are aware.
But anyway, so here I am. I'm with Mike Edwards. We show up at the airport in St. Louis. First time we're going to meet. We meet each other. We hit it off right away. I don't have my driver's license. I had what form of ID? I don't know what form of ID I had. I had some other form of ID. And Mike, he had his, and he could drive. He just got his at the time. So I wonder if I used my passport. I don't know. Anyway.
This whole thing you do, this fast talking thing, this is part of the shuck and jive, though. This is a little bit of part of the
it's
thing.
Just me.
But I understand, but it also is very effective. That's what a shuck and jive artist does. They talk very fast, and they never pause. So you never get a chance to interject.
Yeah.
And they're constantly going. So if they're reading or saying something, you have to keep up with them. And part of the keeping up with them is you get a little bewildered.
Yeah.
And in bewildered, you forget what you've said or they've said, and you're trying to sort of keep pace with them, and you can. And next thing you know, they're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you know that. How'd you figure that out?" Well, we'll get to that later. And then you keep going, and you keep.
That is part of the entertainment aspect of it. Yeah, it's not what I'm doing right now.
It's like
because
Julio
I'm not
Cesar
performing.
Chavez when he was fighting. He would put a pace on you you couldn't keep up with.
Right. Yeah. See, you always analyze it with fighting, which is great.
Yeah.
It's kind of that thing.
It's vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
Exploit vulnerabilities in the human mind. And one of them is that you talk and think faster than most people. So most people, when you're talking, they don't have it like right you just did right there. You wanted to interject, but you get a chance to interject because I'm not going to let you because I'm going to keep talking. And as I keep talking, I talk quicker. You get bewildered. That's one of the things that you do to people, whether you realize it or not. You do it because you've done it that way for a long time.
That's probably
and
right.
It's become a pattern.
Yeah.
It's become a pattern to make the other person feel insecure so you don't.
No,
So you take
you know what it's a
control of
patent
it.
for? It's a patent for me being able to think and not forget things as I'm saying them. Like because like as you
But it's so effective, though.
as you said that, there's another thing that popped in my. I've got like all day long. I have songs in my head. It doesn't stop. Like I do this with my teeth all the
So you're
time.
playing the song
to
in your
music
head?
in my head, like constantly. If I'm not thinking about anything else, I have songs in my head constantly. And I went to the dentist and I said, hey, I've got this thing with my teeth and I'm tapping my teeth. I'm wearing them down. What's going on? And he says, oh, musicians do that all the time. And I go, well, I always have music 24 hours a day in my head. So
Wow.
But now I've gone off somewhere and there was handwriting. So if you look at my handwriting, how bad my handwriting. Like it's really hard to freaking read, right?
It's not that bad. Somebody just wrote me a letter
well,
the other
that's me.
day, and I read the letter. A friend of mine sent me something. He wrote me a letter, and I read his letter. I was like, well, what the fuck is that? Because it's just scribble.
Well, that's
You
me.
want
Right.
someone to
This
read
is
it.
me writing neat and
That's
slow.
not bad.
So slow. Normally, when I write, I can't read it myself. I
should
go
be a
back and I
doctor.
look. Well, that's the thing. What you just said. You're trying to keep up with your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things about bad handwriting. They say that you're trying to keep up with what you're thinking.
Oh,
and
well,
my
that
brain
makes sense.
is
Doctors
always
are
going
smart.
a mile a minute. It's going
Right.
1,000 different ways. And I think it's part of my problem solving is like when people give me ideas that they want, okay, this is what I'd like to do as a magic effect. How do I do it? I'm able to rattle off like 10, 15 different
But
ways
it's so
of doing it.
effective, like as a mentalist, that way, that pattern of talking is so bewildering to people that they just sort of like, huh, what, huh? And you've got them on the ropes always.
It is that thing of even in my stage show, and you'll have to come to a stage show sometime.
I would love to.
I would love you to come
Well,
see
I
a
saw
whole,
the
whole
mini
thing.
version of it when you did the television show. I was
Yeah.
blown away.
I mean, the first thing I do is I come out before I don't even introduce myself.
Where
Well,
do
this-
you do it? So if people they want to see you.
I was just at Planet Hollywood filling for
In Vegas?
Yeah, I've got a thing coming up at Rochester Fringe Festival, Rochester, New York. I'm
Okay.
at a lot of different colleges. You can go to my website, banachek.com, and look up the dates. But the Rochester is going to be on the 13th, 7 p.m., 14th, 5 p.m. Then I'm on the 20th at 9 p.m., the 22nd.
They're not gonna
at
remember this.
3 p.m. I know. So,
You-
yeah, but
you're
you can
bewildering them.
find it on the.
You can't even help yourself.
You can find it. You can find it on the. You can find it on the website. So it is on the
Okay.
website. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you're in Vegas all the time, right?
I'm in Vegas a lot. I
Quite a
don't
bit.
work Vegas that much.
Really?
I'm busy now, really, until beginning of November. I'm going to be like different places,
Just touring on the
consistently,
road?
touring different places. Some of it's corporate, some of it's college. It's a mismatch of different things. So,
So go
yeah.
back to this whole James Randi, Uri Geller.
So here I am with Mike Edwards at the airport, and
Mm-hmm.
we're hitting it off and everything. Peter Phillips shows up. He's the professor that I mentioned a minute ago who's going to be doing the investigating of us. And he has this wristband on, and I'm always asking questions, what's this, what's that? And I'm always noticing things. And he said it was a wristband that he got from a witch doctor in Africa that helps protect him.
Ah.
So I'm starting to think this might be a little easier than I thought it was going to be. Because going in, I was like, I didn't know, are these guys skeptical? Are they going
Right.
to use one-way mirrors? Are they going to be trying to trick us, catch us? I had no clue. So we get into, we had Peter Phillips' car because Mike was too young to drive a rental. Peter Phillips has a rental. He's in front of us, so we're following him. And this is how it all starts, really. I'm sitting there and just kind of like me talking all the time. I'm looking around. I'm always doing something, always noticing something. I look in the back seat and I notice there's a briefcase. I reach in the back and I kind of pull it under the dash. It's locked. And to me, like if somebody locks something, it means they don't want you inside there, of course, right? But why does anyone is in there? Old briefcase, easily can just open the locks. So I pick the locks, open it up. Inside there's a whole bunch of silverware. So either this guy's a kleptomaniac or this is the silverware he's going to be using for the experiment. So I start bending it all up, lock the briefcase, put it in the back. Sit there for about 2 more minutes, open up the glove compartment. There's some extra keys and things in the glove compartment. I start bending those up.
You bent his fucking keys?
Well, I'm a psychic, right? This shit happens. Like,
Yeah, what if he needed those keys to get in his house?
yeah, but I needed him to be convinced I was genuine.
I get it.
All right, so I end up looking over at the car keys that are hanging out, the keys that are hanging out on the car key out of the ignition. I start to reach over to get them, and Mike just looks at me and says, "I think you've done enough. Stop." So, but there's this really interesting phenomena, right? We knew that in the laboratory, everything we did at that point was going to be on a micro level. It's going to be very small because it had to be, because we couldn't make it look like it's a trick. It had to look like minute.
Right.
And not just that, we didn't know if they were going to be watching us, like I said, through one-way mirrors and things like that. So there's an interesting phenomenon at the time that was called spontaneous PK. And that is stuff that just happens.
PK.
Psychokinesis. PK is short for
Okay.
psychokinesis. Telekinesis, psychokinesis, the whole thing, they're all the same thing. So there's these things just supposedly happen around these psychics that can bend metal. Stuff moves, stuff breaks, stuff
Right.
that. So those things were the things that would convince him and keep him holding on, even if we did a big bend out of the laboratory, but not on camera. That's the thing that would keep him going, I want to get that on film. I definitely want to get that on film. I'm going to document that someday. That's going to happen in the laboratory. When we ended up getting to the laboratory, all the students at the university were extremely skeptical, very, very skeptical. But they had heard about the spontaneous PK. So they hid things underneath the video recorders. There was a separate room, and they hid all kinds of things everywhere around. I noticed there was stuff hidden. I mean, why is there a quarter hidden under that VCR? You know, why is there a fork hidden behind that cupboard? You know, it doesn't belong there. So I started bending up all those things on lunchtime, and that convinced all the students that we were genuine as well.
Oh, Christ!
So this whole thing went on and on. It's as simple as so. What happened was immediately Randy sent them a list of 13 caveats of things that they shouldn't do. And it was common sense stuff, right? It was stuff like, don't let the subjects work at the same time because they could distract you. Don't let them work with more than one object at a time because they could confuse you with those objects as to which ones you're bending. And there was this whole list of different things. They showed the list to me and Mike and had a good laugh about it and said, this would make you guys so uncomfortable. We want you to be comfortable. Where in reality, they should have followed that list because, one of the things Randy said was mark everything on a micro and a macro level. So the subjects can see the macro mark, but won't realize there's a micro mark on there as well, which would have helped because their idea of doing a macro mark was on every fork, they took the fork or spoon, they measured it at both ends, like the height from the table, and they measured the middle of the fork from the height from the table. Then they put a label on it on a little string with a number on it. And that was their idea of keeping track of if something had bent or not, because they would measure it after we concentrated on it, and they would then remeasure it again afterwards, and they would say, oh, okay, this is bent a millimeter or 2 millimeters. So we would do things like we would say, this tag's in my way, can I take it off? Yeah, you can take it off. We'd put it down. Concentrate on it. Didn't do anything. Put it down on the table. Pick up another fork or a spoon. Say, do you mind if I remove this tag? Take it off, put it down, concentrate on it. Nothing happens. Switch the tags around on the one that was on the first one to the second one to the first one. And then put the two forks off to the side and then wait 2-3 hours later. Pick up one of those forks, obviously not doing anything with it, concentrating on it. Say, why don't you measure it? And they would measure it, and the measurements had now changed. Not realizing, because they never measured the other one again, because they remeasured everything consistently later on and put new tags on them every single time. Not realizing that we just simply switched forks. Or as we reached across the table, we would lean on one of the forks. And then hours again later, we would pretend like we actually bent that fork. So this went on. I mean, it went on for 180 hours over 4 years. I mean, we messed with these people bad. We did probably some things at the time that were probably illegal as well.
Like what?
Like leaving the window unlocked at the laboratory, going off to the club across the state line, coming back like about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, breaking into the building and bending up every single piece of metal that was in the laboratory. They had
what kind of fucking scientists were running this?
Well, this is back in the 80s, so right? And they actually had this aquarium.
Back in the 80s, scientists were like 80s TV shows.
They really, no, it's true. Here's the sad thing, right? I went into this thinking these people were going to be the enemy. It was me against them. You know,
Right.
I had to do this. Turns out these are just really, really nice people that are very naive when it comes to what psychic phenomena is.
Right. Well, if you're a scientist, most likely you're not studying a whole lot of liars and mentalists and magicians and psychic phenomena, and you really are probably trying to find out whether or not it's real, and maybe you believe a little bit too much.
Yeah,
You don't know enough yet.
When it came to this type of phenomena, absolutely.
Yeah.
But Geller was already doing that. Other psychics were already doing it in other countries, and they were being validated as a genuine thing.
In other countries?
Yeah, we know,
Like
like
where?
Jean Girard over in France,
Tanzania or
Stephen
something?
North over in England. You know, there was a lot of research going on in England at the time on this type of phenomena as well. It was a really big thing back then.
And it was just people hosing people.
it was little kids. Like, here's the weird thing, right? So over in England, there were, I can't think what the guy's name is now. There was a scientist over there, a parapsychologist, who was working with little kids, and his thinking is that kids don't lie. Little kids don't lie. Well, that's all they do is lie. They get to that point where they learn how to lie to get anything and everything.
Thinks kids don't lie? That's someone without kids.
And these kids only got caught. The only reason they got caught was by accident, because the video cameras were left on, and as soon as the parapsychologist left the room, the kids were taking forks and spoons and actually bending them underneath their feet and then putting them back up on the table. So, and they would come in.
They literally, scientists went in with the premise that children don't lie. That is one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever heard in my life.
I don't disagree with you, but this is how badly people wanted to believe in this phenomenon.
Why do people want to believe in hidden powers?
I think it's why people want to believe in most things, right?
UFOs.
We want to believe there's something more than just us. Like, for most people, we're not enough. And I don't know if it's because we get so bored with our lives, we get depressed with our lives, we get, we're in this everyday thing of going to work, coming home, and is this all there is? Is this it? Is there something else that's a superpower that I could actually have? Is there something I can discover that's bigger than me, better than me? Is the universe much bigger than just this planet right here?
Right.
So, I mean, if you ask me, I would think that if UFOs were coming here, if they were coming here, let's say, I don't believe they were, but if they were coming here.
You don't believe they were?
No, I don't.
Why is that?
But I think if they were, I just don't. I don't. I think we would really have real evidence, 100% evidence of it by now. But here's the thing, right? Wouldn't it make much sense, even like for us, okay, let's say we start looking at other planets. Are we going to send other humans out there? Or are we going to go ahead and send robots or something like that can
like
last
we do to Mars?
They can last.
Yeah.
And robots are getting better and better and better at. So if there's an advanced civilization, surely they would also have this advancement where they don't have to send themselves out. They can send something to represent them, right?
What the real hardcore believers believe those grays are.
Yeah.
The gray aliens, the big black eyes. They think there's some sort of a android or something.
And it could be, but I don't believe we've had him.
I believed a lot more before I started doing that television show.
Right.
That television show cured me of Bigfoot, cured me of psychics, cured me of aliens, cured me of like almost everything.
Well, this is the thing with me, right? When I was a young kid, I believed in that stuff. When I was a young kid, I spoke in tongues. I thought I did.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah. I had the whole experience. I mean, it was like, all the chemicals running through my body, and me just going, doing the whole damn thing, and going to that. And I realized later what was going on, but at the time, I was looking for answers. I was looking for answers in religion.
You had a very disturbed life, and you were probably looking for some sort of security.
I got shut down every single time I would ask questions. I was called a troublemaker.
Did you have a preconceived notion of telepathy or spiritual gifts or anything before this?
No, I mean, I think like a lot of people, like the idea of mediums and psychics, it felt like people that are often trying to just make money off of people in really vulnerable situations.
Yeah.
And I've always believed certainly there's got to be people who have certain gifts like that, but that the vast majority couldn't be trusted, or, I didn't think telepathy could be real. That seems impossible. It just seems impossible. Even things like plant communication felt impossible. Or, I mean, none of that was something that was like my worldview. I was working on, solving problems around paid family medical leave and making health insurance more affordable and accessible. Like, it was not my cup of tea, really. And so, which was kind of great, because as I tumbled into this world, I mean, I was really wide-eyed as like, wait a second, have I been wrong about everything? And that's kind of where I ended up, was like I had to go revisit everything I ever thought about the world, because I started realizing our entire paradigm is wrong. I mean, or a lot of it is. That was my experience.
So let's talk about what you saw first. Like, what was the first example where it was like an aha moment for you?
Yeah, so after I heard the interview with Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, I Zoomed with her, and then I asked if I could go see her and meet her and talk about this a bit, because I thought this could be the next project. And I just knew it was going to be the next project, right? So one of the first things I had her do was I was like, can you just tell me about some of the emails that come in from parents? And I had her just kind of go through reading some emails from parents. And it was one after the other. Like, I didn't believe this, and I didn't believe my wife, or I didn't believe my husband that this could be possible, but we've tested it. People were sending tests. And I thought, okay, whatever is going on here, these parents don't know that any other parents are going through this. They think a singular miracle is happening in their home, that this child can read their thoughts. And that this is where the story is, that there's so many parents who haven't been listened to. And so I really thought this was about parents at first, and then discovered, no, there's been teachers writing about this for 30 years, capturing it, videotaping this phenomenon going on, and scared to come out about it. And I think same with the families, right? I mean, what a weird thing to say, this child can read my mind, or this child seems to be able to do X, Y, Z, things that seem impossible. And so, my first thought was, okay, I need to see this with my own eyes. And so Dr. Powell had just been reached out to by a family in Mexico who discovered that their 13-year-old daughter was inside. They didn't think she was, and she was able to communicate. And the reason they discovered that was during COVID. They were in charge of homeschooling and started being like, okay, let's see what you know. And bing, 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 she starts spelling. She knew an awful lot. And I think they were shocked. And pretty soon thereafter, she said, I can read your mind. And they thought, what? And they would do tests. What did I just draw? And she'd say what they just drew. What are we thinking? And she would write it. And so...
Do they say what they see? Or how they see it? Like if someone writes something down, do they see the word or do they know it?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And, we've done a few experiments that, again, I'm not a scientist. Like the experiments I was doing for the film, which is going to be now a film, but the podcast was kind of me just trying to understand, like proof of concept, what is going on here, right? And I can only say what spellers have told me, and there's been quite a few spellers who say I can see through someone's eyes or I can hear through their ears. And others who seem to have a merged consciousness with someone that they're very close to, whether it be a father or a teacher or a communication partner, father or whatever. We did some experiments with one mom where we'd show an image to her. Her son, who was sitting across the room, would all of a sudden start writing what the image was. But what was so fascinating is sometimes the mom wouldn't even know what the image was. So at one point she thought it was paint. No, she thought there was a food fight. It was ketchup and mustard, and he wrote paint. So at that point, it's like she's not obviously sending a thought, right? He seems to be tapping in the second the image is in her own mind. So for us, it was a big question of, is this just sheer telepathy? Because a few parents have told me, no, this is bigger than that. It seems like a merging of consciousness of some sort.
Yeah, in a bizarre way. If the mother doesn't know what it is and the child does, that's strange.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And, but I also, one of the stories that I loved goes back, so Rupert Sheldrake, the Cambridge biologist who's in this project, he didn't believe in telepathy either. I mean, I think a lot of scientists, right, don't believe this stuff right away either. And he had a senior professor that he really looked up to, Sir Rudolph Peters. And he was knighted by Queen Elizabeth for being such a brilliant scientific mind, right? And this Sir Rudolph Peters was in the tea room at Cambridge one time and telling young Dr. Sheldrake, young Rupert here, that he just heard of a blind boy that he tested who obviously is blind and can't read an eye chart. But if his mother is looking at it, he could read it.
Whoa.
And that's how Rupert Sheldrake fell into this world. And that boy was diagnosed with, being blind, but also at the time what they called, severe mental retardation, which no, we don't call it that. That's, but that's, who knows what this young individual had, if he had apraxia or what was going on, or if he had autism. But
because autism and blindness, it's a huge impediment, especially nonverbal autism and being blind. Like, how do you learn anything? So you would assume that there's something wrong with the child when really there's just a lack of the ability to communicate.
Yeah, with non-speaking individuals with apraxia, they are in there. They're so smart. It's just that mind-body disconnect and not being able to,
What do they think causes that? Do they have an understanding of what it is?
I don't know. There's so many wonderful experts out there looking into this, and I don't know what causes apraxia, but I do know that there's a lot of supports to help individuals who have apraxia to communicate, and the world is just making it really difficult for these individuals.
Have you ever seen this young blind boy that uses echolocation and he can ride a skateboard and move around? How bizarre is that?
It's cool. I mean, in some ways, you think of like echolocation or being able to see through infrared as like a sixth sense, like a sense that we don't have, right? But it's like a sense some other creatures get around with. So it's like what we're talking about here is almost like a seventh sense, right? It's something beyond that. But I think there's something so beautiful about that, right? That if humans are so creative that we will find our way to get around the world and find our ways to communicate.
Also, when you're missing a sense, your other senses are stronger. This has always been a suspicion.
Yeah.
I think that's been proven. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That people are better at hearing things if they're blind or seeing things if they're deaf.
Yeah. I think that is absolutely true. And I think, though, as far as, individuals with apraxia go, again, like it's mind-body disconnect, there's so many of the spellers I've met who don't know they have a body at first. They can't feel their body. They want heavy boots to know where their feet are or a heavy necklace to know where their chest is. And I think not being in your body, not knowing you have your body, leaves you to live in this consciousness space more, right? This world of thought where we can't imagine that. We're so bound to our body. We have these dissociative boundaries where it's like, you're Joe and I'm Kai. And so I think that's what heightens a lot of this for them, is just not, feeling as grounded into their bodies.
In the wackiest of conspiracy theories, when people talk about the government's connection to alien intelligence, that they recruit these nonverbal autistic kids because they're the ones who can communicate with aliens.
I don't believe that.
No, I don't believe that either. No, it's the wackiest of conspiracy theories. But the idea being that if you were the government, you would look for someone who is extraordinary in that they're more open to this ability to interact than we would be. They do not have the burden of feeling foolish. They don't have the burden of societal constraints that we've kind of culturally put on the idea of alien life being able to communicate with them. Yeah.
I mean, I have received a question around, could the government utilize these individuals? Right,
isn't that disgusting? That's the first thing you think about.
Yeah, people think
if
about
someone's
that.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Could the government, like the X-Men?
Right. You're right. Like, how will the government utilize this and manipulate it for their own gain?
That's what everybody worries.
Yeah, and it's a fair worry. I mean, it is a fair worry,
sure.
And like we try to be very protective of the families and make sure that they're safe and that they're only out there if they want to be out there, and that type of thing.
And even they know what that means.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Right.
You say you want to be out there. Do you know what that means?
Right. Exactly. But I will say, I mean, every non-speaking individual with these gifts that I've ever met won't use it for bad or nefarious means. They're interested in love. They're interested in connection.
Right.
Not.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the problem is if they were used and didn't know what they were doing.
They would know. They'll know. They can read your thoughts, and they know what's up. Yeah. They know what's up better than anyone, I think.
Interesting. When you first started, was there stages of acceptance for you with these ideas?
Yeah.
What was the first stage?
I mean, the first stage was, I think, I never had the barrier of whether or not they're in there. I helped start the inclusion program in my high school, and I've worked and cared for people, with varying abilities my whole life. So that I knew they were in there. But I think the next thing for me was the telepathy. And when you see it, and when you talk to enough parents who are saying, all you need to do is go see it. It's not like does it show up or like will it appear? It's like for the parents and teachers to report this is happening. If you go work with a speller, you just see it. So that was pretty phenomenal. And then the first person we saw being able to do it was this girl, Mia, and she was still in the early stages of learning to spell to communicate, so she was being touched. It often helps, like first with the wrist, and then here, and then here, and then on the head, and then often then there's no touch at all, right? It's just like learning that body and learning those supports to control your motor. So Dr. Powell was like, no scientist will take this because she was being touched. And I think a lot of us in the room were like, wait, people think her mom's sending Morse code? Like they planned. I mean, of course, that's ridiculous. It really is. Right. But then the next individual could do it across the room and wasn't being touched. And, anyone that we saw thereafter wasn't being touched. So that was pretty remarkable. And I don't think touch actually has. I think telepathy is still really cool if you're being touched, But so the telepathy was the first one. And then I think the second one was the language stuff. A lot of parents saying, we have no idea how, but she's speaking Portuguese and no one in a house speaks Portuguese, or people talking about, you
And
know,
this has been documented?
yeah, yes, yeah. It's quite common actually.
And these are nonverbal kids.
Non-speakers, yeah.
Non-speakers.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the difference between nonverbal and non-speakers?
Well, I think nonverbal is this idea, right? Like that you're not able to make like language, you know, in a way where like speaking is just like they can be verbal, they can communicate, they just can't speak it.
Okay.
They just can't speak it.
Okay.
Without the supports of a communication partner, like, you know, that is the goal is to type independently.
Do they make noises?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with apraxia, there's often a lack of body control, voice control. So there is like a beautiful soundtrack that I've come to love of non-speakers that will often be like some grunting or just lack of body control. And actually, I think if someone sees a non-speaker out in public, one of the most loving things you can say is like, I know you can't control your body. I know that's not you. You know what I mean? Because the person in there might want to be doing X, Y, Z, but just cannot control their body. And imagine how frustrating that would be.
Yeah. So these people, they're nonverbal, and when you say that they can speak Portuguese, they understand Portuguese. Do they write it? Like how does this manifest itself?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's one young girl I'm thinking of in particular, but there's this again. This has come up now with, I don't know, 15 non-speakers that I've met. But the girl I'm thinking of, her, you know, she will work during the day with a paraprofessional and a spelling coach. You know, there's the education system, there might be 2 or 3 people in the room, and 3 people were in the room this day. And she started spelling in a language, and they didn't know what it is, so they looked it up, and it was Portuguese. And then she started spelling in Spanish, and they were like, "This is wild." And she also said she knew hieroglyphics. And
what?
Yeah. And then they were like, well, how do we test this? Because if we know the answer, she'll read our mind and know. So they had to just...
Which is wild already.
Yeah.
Like, you have to worry about this kid reading your mind. It might be bullshit.
So they had to, like, look up pictures of hieroglyphics and not know what the pictures were representing. To be like, okay, here's the feather. I mean, I don't know what a hieroglyphic, whatever, a feather on top of a stone or whatever the picture was of. And here's this picture and this picture. And then she identified them. And then they looked them up and they were right.
Wow. All of them 100% accurate?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I'm not saying, of course, not.
What the hell is going on there?
Not every.
What is that?
Well, I mean.
Like, that's beyond bizarre. Did you give her cuneiform?
I mean, I wasn't there for this. Her mom reported it to me, and it has the email that she received from the staff. And so, the staff is just like, this is what happened today.
Weird that I've never, I just recently found out all that shit that's happening in massage parlors, but 10 years ago, I had no clue. I would go by a massage parlor and go, oh, that's for massages. There's nothing bad going on here. I wonder how many places like that are like psychics. What happens at psychics at 4 a.m? Why are they open at 4 a.m? Is that where you get your ass eaten out and you don't learn about that until you're 70 or something?
I don't think so. I think psychics are open late at night because A, it's a scam, and B, when it's late at night, they're drunk. And like maybe it's a girl who's driving home, the guy texted her, and she doesn't know. Should I text him back? Why is he texting me so late? That's kind of disrespectful. I don't know if he's the one. And she pulls into that psychic's office. And she's like, I just need you to tell me about my future. And the psychic is like, I sense there's a problem, a romantic interest. My boyfriend. Yes, you're stressed. There's something deeply troubling you. You're confused. I am confused. Yes, you're confused. The decision's hard to, there's something coming up. Something's happening. Yeah, he wants me to come over to the house and fuck him, and I don't want to do it. Yes, that's it. There's a thing that he's wanting you to do that you're not so sure if he's the one. Is that it? Yes! Oh my God! That's what I said when I was on the way over here. And then when he said, you're not sure if he's the one, I'm like, oh my fucking God. Is it like written on my forehead? How's it possible he knows? He fucking knew about Mark. He knew about our relationship problems. And he knew that I was on my way over there wondering whether or not he's the one. I don't think he's the one. I don't think he's the one.
I think you're my favorite girl voice guy.
I'm fucking serious. You want to be a fucking asshole and hang out with your friends and all this bullshit when I'm trying to figure out how this fucking psychic knows you're not the one for me. How does this psychic know? How does she know? A friend of mine went to one. He's like, he knew my grandmother's everything about my relationship with my grandmother. I go, don't you know? Don't you know everything about your relationship with your grandmother? What the fuck? You want to pay people to tell you shit you already knew? It's 4 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock. You're fucking nuts. I'm wearing a watch. When it rains out, you get wet. Whoa, this guy's crazy. Tell me all the shit I already knew.
It's crazy. I bet psychics are way better nowadays because of technology, and like they probably have like a little earpiece in. Some guy in the back that's like looking at their license plate number online and finding out where they live. You know, like and just feeding the person information. I bet psychics are killer now.
I bet there's some probably they're like super high scammy level.
Because you want the repeat customer. So if you're that accurate, I bet there's a huge scam in that.
That is a crazy thing. If you're driving, like you're driving through Burbank or some shit, every couple miles you see one of those psychic reader places.
5 a.m, open, big
Really?
hand on the front, like a hand job place, but it's a psychic.
I went to one once when I was in New York, and I was going to these fucking stupid auditions. Like I did not want to act, and it wasn't what I was interested in doing. But like your agency would tell you, well, you know, you really should look into this, and you'd see what it was. It was like some role that I didn't. Not only was I not gonna get it, but I didn't want it. Like, this is like, it's not even funny. It's like super serious. Yeah, but you should do it. So they know what you could do. Commercials. I'd go in and read for commercials, and I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? So I left one of them, and I was terrible at it too. I was terrible auditioning. And then I went to this psychic. And I'm like, well, fuck it. Let's see. It's only like, I don't remember how much it was, like $5, $10. She's like, you don't get along with your brothers. I go, I don't have any brothers. Shit. I'm like, I looked at her. I'm like, you don't know anything. I looked in her eyes, and she looked at me, and I knew that she knew that I knew she was full of shit.
So bad.
I knew she was full of shit. I looked at her. I don't have any brothers. She was like, oh, shit. I got crazy. She got gangster. She took a swing. She's like, I'm sensing brothers from this asshole. Got a chip in his shoulder. Brothers probably beat him up. No. It came from a bad audition. You missed it, lady.
It's weird how
Do you live in Georgia?
No, I live here.
Oh, okay.
Georgia? Why'd you say
I
Georgia?
thought somebody told me
Why'd
you
you
lived
whisper
in
it like
Georgia.
no one's listening? Yeah, don't tell anybody.
Well, I have a secret friendship with Jim Goad, who's one of the few people who makes me really laugh, even though, you know,
It's not a secret anymore.
most of the world hates Jim Goad.
Why do they hate Jim Goad?
Because he writes these very transgressive, in-your-face pieces. But when he writes about his brother, he kills me. It is some of the most touching stuff I've ever read in my life about his brother's death. So, you know, the whole world, I think, is so fooled in that they think that Jim Goad is a bad person, and they think that maybe I'm a good person, when it's just exactly the opposite.
How are you a bad person?
Oh, let's not even go down that road. I already told on Cheryl Strayed killing that bird. Come on, do I got to do more?
That's not being a bad person. That's a person who's appreciative of a dark moment. That doesn't make you a bad person.
No, I'm a bad person.
Are you?
Yeah,
Really?
I am.
Give me an example.
You know, and this is awkward, but this is another one of those cognitive reframing honesty things. Is I took care of my mother while she was dying of lung cancer. And even while I was taking care of her and she was lapsing in and out of consciousness in her home, there was a little part of me that felt this glee that thought, I will never have to worry about Mom again. I will never have to worry about whether Mom is offended by my work. I will never have to worry about Mom falling down the stairs and breaking her leg. That this enormous concern in my life will be resolved. And it's going to be at the cost of losing someone I love, you know, so much. But the benefit is that this huge burden of responsibility is going to be lifted. And so there was this kind of secret glee, thinking, I'm gonna have some freedom here that I never imagined. Yeah, Nora Ephron touches on that in her work when she talks about her mother's death, and I think it's just it's an honest thing, but it's not a thing that makes you look very good.
I don't think that makes you a bad person. I think that makes you a person who's honest about thoughts that are very uncomfortable. That is just something that people think, I think, all the time if they're dealing with someone who's completely incapacitated and they have to care for them 24/7, but they don't express it. It's just a reality of the burden of someone who's really sick or really dying. There's no getting around it. I don't think it's that's not a good example. I need an example why you're a bad person. Maybe you're just really self-critical, or aware of things that other people could take out of context of the totality of your life, and just use it as an example, put it in quotes, and use it as an example of you being a bad person.
Another thing is I'm really, really conflicted about the nature of my creativity. This idea that in journalism school, they call the theory seduce and betray. That when you go into an interview situation, your goal is to gain the trust of that person and to get them to reveal something very intimate that you're going to betray by revealing to the public. So you're basically going in there to charm them and then to hurt them. And so much of my creative process is that way because, for example, the gut story,
Mm-hmm.
the story in which the guy puts the carrot up his butt, that was my best friend at the time, in like late 20s, and he got fantastically drunk and he told me that carrot story, and I honestly believe he had never told anybody the carrot story. And I kept that story in my mind for, 10, 15, almost probably 20 years until I found a way to put it with 3 similar stories and make a larger piece out of it. And the first time I read that story, I hadn't seen him in maybe a couple of years, this friend. And I look across this big auditorium, and there he is. And I'm telling his carrot story in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And the look on his face, he's just stricken. And he hasn't talked to me since. And this is why, even David.
But did you use his name?
No,
Then fuck him.
no, but
What's wrong with him?
people still feel betrayed, and
Get over it. You need to hang out with more comedians. If he was a comic, you'd be laughing.
well, David Sedaris has told me. He said his family is very reluctant to share their lives with him anymore, because he's kind of made them involuntary public figures, and they have to deal with the fallout from these stories about them. And really, only his brother and his sister Amy have kind of been able to spin this in a good way. But it alienates a lot of people.
Oh, for sure. Well, especially if you use their actual name or people know the origin of the actual story.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're not a bad person. Sorry to break it to you. Think you're a bad person. Those are the only examples. You're not convinced.
No, I'm just not revealing the worst stuff.
Okay, of course. Do you think that you have to have some sort of embracing of these dark thoughts to create the way you create? I mean, you're creating these characters that go down some horrible roads, both mentally and in reality, in your work. And it's amazing stuff, but to cultivate that, don't you think you have to be kind of in touch with those thoughts of your own, to kind of in touch with this, this thing where you're watching your mom die and you are going to be relieved of a burden, and you don't want to tell anybody that you're kind of looking forward to that a little bit, even though you love your mom dearly. That's a natural thing that people don't want to discuss, but absolutely exists. It's the elephant in the room.
And that's kind of like how comedy works, or anything where you're stating this unstated thing. You're creating this enormous relief. My classic example when I teach, I ask my students, I say, so what do you call a black man that flies a plane? A pilot, you fucking racist. You're creating this tension.
Right.
They don't want you to say what they think you're going to say. They don't want to hate you. They like you.
Right.
And they don't want you to say something hateful and awful.
Yeah.
And then you turn it around and you put it on them. And so, in a way, I always think that's the soul of comedy, is to create this tension that you relieve as quickly as possible. And the relief occurs as laughter.
I was having dinner with a good friend of mine, his wife, and a buddy of mine, and my friend's friend and his wife. And fun time the whole night. Everybody's laughing and joking, or having dinner and having a couple of drinks and joking around, talking about things. And I forget what led to him saying this, but we were talking about just unfortunate scenarios and, people that just their life is not going the way they'd like it to go and things going bad. And out of nowhere, the guy goes, well, it's like this. My daughter has, she had a baby with a black man. And we're both like looking at him like, where is this going? And then he goes, and, I just think it's incredibly selfish to bring that kid into the world. And this kid doesn't have an identity. They're not black and they're not white. And they're not going to have an identity. They're not going to have a group to belong to. And my friend's jaws dropped. I didn't know the guy. I just met him that night. And my dropped. And I looked at my other friend who was with me who didn't know any of these other people. And everyone's like, what the fuck? And then a couple of us get up and go to the bathroom. And I turned to my friend Andrew and I said, let's get the fuck out of here. And we just left. And I texted my friend. I go, too much racism, had to go. And we just left. And, but it was so weird. It's like this guy was holding into this and he's like, you know what, I can trust these people with some racist shit. I can trust them. And it didn't work. And he knew it didn't work. Like, he knew it went over like a lead balloon. He knew it. He could feel it. Because everybody was like, what? Like, wait a minute. Your daughter's in love with a man who's black. They have a child together. And you think it's incredibly selfish to bring that kid into the world. Like, what the fuck? I wish I could remember what the fuck we were talking about before then. But what we were talking about before then was like drug addicts or people who fuck up or, people who are addicted to gambling or something. People whose lives were in chaos. And then he brings up his daughter having a baby with a guy who has the wrong amount of melanin in his skin, whose ancestors came from the wrong part of the world for him. It was weird, man. It was weird. It was weird also to see him recognize.
It's funny, you throw out a story, I throw out a story. I had a hired car from Philadelphia to New York once on tour. And as we were going past Liberty Hall in Philadelphia, this great guy with a Philly accent driving the car, he points at Liberty Hall and he says, that building has stood for, 300 years. I bet you can't tell me why. And I just looked and I said, because the bricks are laid in Flemish bond. I think that's probably it. Where the bricks are offset in such a way that they bond in the center. It's called Flemish bond. And the guy's so silent. Nobody's ever answered the question. And his father was a bricklayer, and he was so proud. And he goes, you're right. Nobody's ever said Flemish bond. That's why it still stands. And we were best friends and just talking like crazy all the way into Manhattan. We get into Manhattan. There's two guys walking down the street. The guy goes, oh, Christ, I hate coming to New York. The fags. And I said, well, I'm married to a man, and faggot is pretty much my middle name. And that poor guy had to do this whole sort
dance,
of rejuggling of everything. That the guy who knew Flemish bond was also one of them. And it was one of those wonderful kind of icky but necessary moments. And, they're horrible, but, things are better afterwards.
You must have loved that moment, though. You?
No, it was a horrible moment because I felt like I was throwing away any kind of chatty, conversational relationship I had with this guy. He seemed like just a salt of the earth, great, funny guy. And it was just kind of going out on a limb and saying, okay, he's going to hate my guts after this. So.
When I was a little kid, we lived in San Francisco from age 7 to 11, and then moved to Florida, which is the polar opposite of San Francisco. And I don't know if I'd ever heard someone use the word faggot before, but I'd never seen an adult upset about gay people before. And then my friend Candido was his name. His dad was Cuban. They were Cuban. And his dad slams the newspaper on the table. I was 11. And he's like, I can't believe they're letting these fags get married. He was just so angry. And I remember stopping and thinking, like, here's a man. This guy's a man. He's a grown man. Like, he's a grown-up. But yet he's got this infant idea of what a person should be. Like, they got to fall into this category, that category. He's got it locked into his head. He's a fucking baby, but he's a man, and he's my friend's dad. This guy made it to 35 years old or whatever the fuck he was, and this is his operating system that he's using to navigate his way through life. I remember it being an important moment for me because I realized, like, just because someone's older doesn't mean they learned anything. And that people are capable of success in life. You could become married, you can have children, you get a house, you get a good job, you drive a car, the whole thing. You got it all. You've got a checkbook. You got a fucking. You're operating. It's moving. You're successful. It's happening, and yet you still have these stupid ideas.
But I think there's a benefit to the expression of the stupid idea. Not that they're going to be challenged, but that at least we're aware that it's there.
Yeah.
And that, we know that this thing is not just kind of festering, and that there's a way of kind of not fixing this person, but at least we know where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Another shooting myself in the career foot thing.
I don't think you've done it once the whole show.
Okay, here it goes. Okay. I read the Daily Stormer.
Whoa.
Because Andrew Anglin cracks me up.
Who is that?
He is the completely transgressive guy who really loves Fight Club. And
Oh, wow.
He writes for the Daily Stormer. I think he is the Daily Stormer. And he writes the most atrocious, insensitive, brutal things. But they're so shocking and so transgressive that that sometimes I laugh just out of the shock. The old classic joke, how do you get a nun pregnant? You fuck her. There's a shock value there that just sort of jars me and makes me laugh sometimes.
That joke would have worked better if you hadn't told the black pilot joke first.
Oh, well, of course.
The problem is, like, people become, you know what's coming.
Yeah. But sometimes, I want to go into a world where people are not watching their language so closely. And I see people kind of vent the worst of themselves.
Right.
And I'm not kind of endorsing it, but I feel a little less reactive to abuse. Scientologists have this exercise called bull baiting, where they take you into a room and people surround you and they call you every horrible thing, and then they nitpick every aspect of your appearance or your character, who you are, and they attack you on every level. And they do this for long, long periods of time, and they do this day after day until you are completely not reactionary to that kind of verbal abuse. You can put it over there. You can accept the fact that it's somebody else's statement, somebody else's opinion, observation, that it's not true. And you can be with it. And so in a way, when I go into these sites that are so patently offensive and deliberately, aggressively offensive, I feel like in a way they're thickening my skin, that I'm not quite such a delicate little reactive thing afterwards.
Do you worry about someone looking through your search results?
Oh, there are far worse things than that.
I was going through Instagram the other day, and there was this one person who was talking about the purpose of life and when you die, what's going to happen. And I immediately just started laughing. I'm like, you don't know.
Right.
How are you saying this? Like, when you die, what happens? And he was like one of them spiritual type characters, is just kind of a huckster. There's a lot of spiritual hucksters out there these days.
There are, yes. In the 90s, we debunked all the psychics talking to the dead. That was that hasn't been too popular in recent years, but that was a big thing.
People caught on to that little earpiece thing.
Yeah, the earpiece, or just the cold reading. Like, I see a father figure. Is this a grandfather, father, uncle, friend of the family? You can.
Yeah.
And he's saying something about it's okay for you to forgive yourself. Oh, okay. How about where was the will?
Yeah.
He hid his will somewhere. Where is that? Because that's what we want to know is, that ring he had. Where is that?
If you're just vague enough, I mean, like horoscopes, if you're just vague enough, people are like, oh my God, it's right all the time. It's always right. That's not even a real horoscope. If you really want to pay attention to actual astrology, they have to know the date you were born, the time you were born.
Right.
It's not just the month of August.
Right.
It's like they got to nail
they want to
it
know
down.
morning or evening.
Yeah.
Or,
What do you think about all that stuff?
It's all bunk.
Is it?
Yeah.
Why has it been around so long?
Well, because it's called the Barnum effect, where P.T. Barnum, you just offer something for everybody. So if you make it general enough, I sense you're an intelligent, wise person, that people really enjoy your company, and you like going to parties and being with other people, and yet you like the quiet solitude of a walk on the beach. People going, "Yep, that is so me." Well, I've pretty much described every scenario you can have. You're alone, you're with people.
But it's one of those things where if you talk to someone who is an actual believer in astrology, like they are so convinced. I got a friend of mine who's trying to tell me that he makes all of his decisions based on consulting with his astrologer.
Mm-hmm. Well, Nancy Reagan did that for his travel after he was shot. She got real paranoid about that. Well, so part of the problem is these astrologers and psychics are themselves remembering their hits and forgetting their misses, the confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So I knew a psychic or a magician who was working the Psychic Friends Network. Back in the 90s, when it's hard to make a living as a magician doing kids' parties. They all want to have their own Vegas show, but only a few people get that. So you got to do something on the side. So this guy was doing Psychic Friends Network, and he told me all about it. They gave him a book, a 3-ring binder. Here's the kinds of things you should say. And, people are calling for love, health, money, career questions. So you can spend 20, 30 minutes at $3.95 a minute just going through there. I sense you're in a relationship right now, and one of you is more committed than the other. Tell me about that. 10 minutes later, they're still talking, and you're thinking about travel. You're not happy with your job. There's some financial stress in your life right now. And then he told me about stuff like, now go get a crystal and then a candle, and I want you to set it up here on your desk. And this would go on and on for hours.
And they charge by the hour.
And they charge by the hour. So one of the problems that Psychic Friend Networks had was people were not paying their phone bills because they, come back on $800 phone bill or whatever, so they would just not pay it. So the phone companies cracked down on the Psychic Friends Network company going, hey, this is getting out of hand. The people aren't paying their bills. So they had to ratchet it back a little bit.
Oh, that's right. They would do it through the phone. That's interesting. They wouldn't get a credit card from you. They would just stay on the line with you.
Right. So he told me that when he first started, he got like 60 cents on the minute for the $3.95 that per minute. But then they bumped it up as he got more experience and kept him on the line longer. They gave him bonuses. Now you get $1 per minute or whatever.
How is that not illegal? I mean, he's not even a psychic. Shouldn't you have to, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go and you got to, go to medical school. You got to get a degree.
There's an interesting history there because in New York City, for example, it was difficult to outlaw like the 3-card Monte guys on the sidewalk with the cardboard because it's just kind of a game.
Right.
Now it would be illegal to sell fraudulent stocks or something like that, or sell a product that's advertised as a health product when it's not. But if, say, in that case, it's under food rather than drugs, or say health products like vitamins are under different standards than say medical drugs. A psychic is more like an entertainer. So this is for entertainment purposes only, so we can do whatever we want, as opposed to a medical doctor that's dispensing advice. So
I
therefore,
get that.
it's not,
I mean,
yeah.
maybe a doctor's a bad example. Maybe I should have said engineer. But the point is, like, if you're going to work as a psychic, like on a psychic network, if you have a business of selling psychics,
Yeah.
like you should be able to, you have to exhibit some sort of psychic something.
Yeah, well, they can't. Under controlled conditions, they always fail.
There's nothing that's ever been done?
No.
What about the one thing that I've read that statistically more people can recognize that people are staring at them?
Yeah.
Like when they're looking at you from behind. Is that horseshit?
Well, it's not been consistently replicated.
So is it possible that some people with a certain sensitivity can detect it?
Well, so one explanation, the skeptic's explanation,
Okay.
is that if I'm in say a Starbucks or something, and I kind of have a sense that people are talking about me, maybe looking at me, and I look, and that catches somebody's eye, and they turn to me, and I think, oh, that person's looking at me. Or vice versa, I'm looking at them, and then they sense something or whatever. So there could be some element of chance to that. Now, the guy that does this, Rupert Sheldrake, he believes that it's actually some kind of like psychic power through the medium. Like when I'm looking at you, something's coming out of my eyes and tickling your neck, so to
That's
speak.
his morphic resonance theory.
Morphic resonance. Now,
Yeah.
Richard Wiseman, a British experimental psychologist, he's tried to replicate that, and he always fails. And then this other woman, Marilyn Schlitz, she also tried to replicate it, and she was able to replicate some of it. So there may be an experimenter bias. It's not clear if it's the skeptics that are biased or the believers that are biased, but in that case, it's best to just say, we don't know. So the default position, the null hypothesis, is that it's not true until you prove otherwise, and that's a difficult one to prove. Now, if I say, well, why is the effect so subtle? Why can't you go to Vegas and become a millionaire gambling or play the stock market? We know traders just need a tiny 0.01% advantage over the other traders or whatever, and they can make
You
a
mean
lot
in
of
terms
money.
of just psychic ability?
Yeah, so if the
But psychic
psychics
ability is
could
a
do
very broad term, right? It's almost like saying drugs. Because
yeah.
there are certain drugs that put you to sleep and certain drugs that make you hyper. They have very different effects. So saying psychic ability, like maybe you have the ability to see if someone's looking at you, but you don't have the ability to pick the lottery.
Right. So the hard part in testing psychics is to pin down what exactly are you saying you could do?
Right.
And that's where it gets pretty fuzzy. So these, like, why is it legal for the phone psychics? Because you can't pin them down. If somebody says, look, I'm just giving relationship advice, why is that illegal? If I say, like the Tony Robbins Netflix documentary, I'm Not Your Guru, which is basically I am your guru, he has that moment in this huge auditorium. There's like 3,000 people there, and he gets this woman up on stage, and she's got relationship problems. He says, do you have your phone? She goes, yeah. Take out your phone and call him right now. And he talks her through dumping this guy on stage, on the phone, and he's at work or something. He's like, what? And then she hangs up, and everybody's happy that she did this. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I have no idea.
That's great for show business, but what if,
So
who the fuck? I mean, that seems crazy. Like, how do you know what kind of relationship they really have?
Now,
You'd
somebody
have to
that
talk to both of them, right? Wouldn't you?
Somebody that I brought this up at an event recently, a party, and somebody said, "Oh, I know the backstory. His staff had been working the audience, and they knew all about her and the relationship, and it was about to go sour anyway. So we brought her up." It's like, oh, okay, so this is the thing with, you see the psychics on TV, there's a lot of stuff you don't see. They work the audience, they know. People fill out, like the faith healers, they fill out prayer cards.
Yeah.
They put their name and address and their ailment. And then, the faith healers have a little earbud in there, and they're listening to the person in the back reading. Okay, here's the person, they have, glaucoma or whatever, and you hear them calling this out. So there's a lot of that we don't see.